everyone, this is Keith Scott from Apple City, Australia. I'm one of the voices that will manage you loose. It's time to watch Relentless and Unstoppable. And so give it up for your main hosts, Douglas Kelly and Andy McPhees.
Yeah, I did notice that you also got along with some people there, including my former parapro, Scott Merriman. Were your thoughts
Yeah.
on him a little mixed, or did you sort of,
Well, they're not really mixed. I feel like he could have done a little bit better of a job as in the school aspect of it. He could have done a better job. But him just as a person, because I did go over and hang out with him and read comic books and stuff with him.
yeah.
But him as a person, he's a really cool person.
Yeah, I
He's very
overall,
like laid back.
yeah, I overall think he's a nice guy.
Hmm.
He was very friendly. I just think that,
Yeah.
he didn't have the schooling aspect of it really nailed down for parts of it.
I feel like the school kind of failed him in the training department. There could have been more training that he could have done, definitely. Um,
Yeah.
but I feel like everybody in like the special ed department and even just like the teachers and stuff, like Mr. Callahan was great. He was like one of the best teachers there besides Mr. Susnick.
Hmm.
Both of them were amazing teachers, but that's because they cared and they went out of their way to do extra training and stuff so they could be properly prepared for like the students learning different ways, but in a lot of aspects for like the special ed department and stuff, they just didn't have the proper training, and it was because they didn't give the budget enough budget to the special ed. Instead, they did it to the football team and the sports.
Yeah, and I was going to bring up as well that, I remember the day that Scott Merriman came into Florence High School because Scott was originally hired as sort of a hired hand because
Mhm.
my previous paraprofessional, I don't know if you'll remember her, it was Virginia. Do you remember a little bit? Or Virginia Holtz, I believe?
The name sounds familiar, but I don't have a picture of her face.
Yeah, she was a Mexican American teacher that and a paraprofessional of mine
Oh,
that
okay.
that worked with me for my freshman year and then parts of my sophomore year. But she left very abruptly during my sophomore year, and what sort of blindsided me at the time because we had a good
Mhm.
relationship at school. And
Mhm.
so when she left abruptly without having given me the news or giving me sort of a advanced warning and without even wishing me the
Mhm.
best, it sort of blindsided me.
Yeah.
And so whatever, though, we moved on, and what came out of it though was Scott Merriman was hired like literally right away. And then
Mhm.
after he and I meshed for a couple weeks, they hired him full time, which shows that it wasn't trained. He wasn't
Yeah.
trained properly and and quite frankly, I can't blame Scott for leaving because you might remember, but he left around the first half of my senior year, and
Mhm.
that was because he just sort of got tired of the job, I think. And he was, I mean, in fairness to him, he was already planning to sort of move to juvenile work anyway. But
Yeah.
I think
I,
that he just didn't have the training, and so he just couldn't give me and
yeah.
others what we needed.
Well, it could have even been because he did mention a few times that he did ask to go to the training to get trained on it, and the school just flat out refused because
Yeah,
they said they didn't have the budget for it. And it's like you don't pay him enough to do the job. So, but apparently, I just found out in Arizona, a lot more teachers are quitting than they have coming in
you
or
know.
are leaving. They're leaving the entire state.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I can't blame them because, my overall opinion is I think schooling started out for the right reasons, you know,
Hmm.
and it's very important that people have those experiences growing up. But I think, as I mentioned, I think where people are failing is the fact that, some students have only one teacher, but the teacher is not able to connect or properly guide every single person since, they're deficient in some ways.
Huh?
And
Interview. Sorry. You're good. Sorry.
I think a lot of it is, not every teacher can help every student.
Hmm.
And I think that there's just people that are just deficient in some ways. And I think that when
Yeah.
you're deficient and you can't provide the proper guidance to some students,
Hmm.
it can be detrimental to their well-being. And so I think
Yeah,
that's leading to, I think that's leading people to either quit or it's leading people to drop out or go to other schools. And it's like, you
yeah.
see all these people complaining about how, our generation is entitled, but the reality is, people are failing to guide us and just people in general, they're failing to guide
But
students and yeah.
But if they say we're so entitled, they also have to consider that we were raised up in a time where they were actually actively changing the school system while we were still going to school. Like we were the
Yeah.
last grade to do the Ames testing. We didn't have to do the SATs. Everybody else after that had to do the SATs and ACTs. But we had to do the Ames testing and we didn't have to do it. So we were actively growing up in a time where they got rid of cursive, they got rid of learning how to read the clock and learning how to count change
Hmm.
and like learning how to do just certain things and like it's just we were actively in a time where school was changing around us, so it was kind of like we had to learn to adapt. So
Hmm.
entitlement, I can understand the entitlement.
Yep,
Mm,
me too, and but it goes back to what I've said, and I'm sure you would agree. If we had more Andy McPhees running our
mm,
schools, trust me, I'm sure schooling would be looked at way differently and people would have a
mm.
more meaningful and high quality experience.
Gee, that's all we have for Relentless and Unstoppable. So tune into the next episode to hear more amazing stories from amazing guests. This is Keith Scott from Sydney, Australia saying so long and I'm smarter than the average bear. Gee.